everybody. PM Kester here with the How to Take a Break podcast. This week, we are taking a break for some COVID thoughts. Yes, some COVID thoughts. COVID came to visit me. It was in the room, as Fat Joe said. It was here. It was in the room. So why does this matter at this point in the pandemic? Or I guess we're saying the pandemic is over now. Because for like the 3 years that we were in the midst of this pandemic, everyone in my family had COVID to varying degrees. Like some on like a lesser scale, some like really bad to the point I have 2 family members that have long COVID, so they're still experiencing stuff. But in the midst of all of that, and me being a caregiver and bringing stuff to people, I never caught COVID. And I was actually thankful, and I'll get more into that later. But I never caught it, and this time with this new variant, I caught it. And so I'm going to share a little bit in this video about how I got it, how we surmised I got it. But really this video is to talk about the 10 days that I had to spend in quarantine and kind of some insights about life I had during that time period. So let's get into it. All right, went to get my beverage. This is hot water with lemon and mint. If you have not already, brief PSA to like and subscribe to my channel. I'm growing little by little, and I'm so thankful and grateful to you guys for that. I also have a podcast, How to Take a Break. Look for this logo, type in How to Take a Break with PM Kester to find it wherever podcasts are available. All right. So, y'all, this is so good. Hot water, lemon, mint. Super simple. But I'm gonna do a little backstory. I'm trying to keep this video short, but I'm gonna do a little backstory. So I was very cautious during the whole COVID ordeal because I have several health issues going on. For people who have followed me on Instagram, who have followed my podcast, I almost had a stroke when I was 36. I'm now 42. So about 6 years out. Oh my gosh. I had never thought about that. But at that time that the stroke happened, it was basically this perfect storm of all these other health issues I found out in my life. Got diagnosed with asthma, so I'm asthmatic. Was taking the stuff for my heart, of course, the stroke. I have cholesterol issues now, but these are more genetic. That's something that recently happened during COVID. I also have osteoarthritis. Because I have some degenerative nerve damage from when I was a child. I have scoliosis, and I have a metal corrective rod, a Harrington rod in my back that caused the degenerative nerve damage. So with all of that being said, I had all these health issues. So I was very cautious during COVID, especially due to my asthma, because my asthma has been uncontrolled. It was very uncontrolled in the beginning. It got better, of course, right before COVID. But just due to anxiety and other things, anxiety actually is an asthma trigger. It makes things worse. So I was very cautious because I've had these breathing issues. And in the past, when I've caught like a really bad cold, I've had to go get breathing treatments and stuff like that because it gets pretty bad. So I was very cautious. With masking, cleaning down the house, making sure that people were quarantined and away from me, even though I was having to take care of people, gloves. And it got to a point where we're going to 3 years and I had not had it, to the point my doctors were even asking questions like, well, what extra are you doing? So I was taking all those medications. I also got really into like, trying to remedy digestive stuff and gut health, and how gut health helps immune support. So I did all this reading on this. I have a background in public health as well, a master's in public health from Benedictine, and I work in the public health arena as well. So I did all that. So I was taking probiotics. I have different vitamins and stuff I take along with my whole regimen of medications. And I try to keep a pretty good diet. Like I eat a lot of leafy greens and stuff like that, and I have certain things I drink in the morning, such as the lemon, hot lemon water, just to start in my morning every day. At night, hot lemon water with ginger, stuff like that, just to kind of help. Leading up to me getting COVID, I had stopped doing a lot of that. And not because I didn't think it was working, but because I had got so busy and distracted with my 9-to-5 job. There's a lot of change going on there, a lot of work being piled up on me. And so taking care of myself, and all this is going to come back when I talk about my COVID insights, kind of took a back seat during that time period, leading up to COVID. And so when I got diagnosed, when I tested positive for COVID a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks at this point. My daughter had it. We did figure that out like on her day 5 that she actually had, was the one who gave me COVID. We thought it was, at first we thought it was like the stomach virus because she's a teenager. So, and teenagers are kind of gross. And so she was having some tummy issues, but she had also eaten some stuff. She wasn't paying attention to like the expiration date. She ate something crappy. And so we were assuming that that's where stuff started. But then she started having like the cold symptoms. And I was like, is it a cold? And a bunch of kids in the area, like her friends, were like having little colds, or what their parents were saying were colds. But I'm thinking is that all of them probably had COVID and they were being gross and sharing food and stuff like that. But she was here and she was being kind of reckless with her sneezing and cleaning up, and then I'm trying to help her. And I wasn't being as cautious as I had been, because I used to be like, oh, you sick, well, I'm finna wear my mask around you. I'm sorry, I'm that person again. When I get sick, I've had some really bad experiences. So that's just me, just letting you know. But by the time she was day 5, and she was better, after like 2 days. So that's why I didn't really think anything of it. But by the time I started, I tested positive on her day 5, and what would be my day 1. I started having symptoms like the day before, and then the next day, my day 1, I tested positive, and I took the test because I woke up and I was having like really bad chest pains. Like my chest was hurting. If you have asthma, it felt like I had a really bad asthma attack overnight. And for me, that feels like kind of like my chest has been like somebody has beaten, just start pounding on my chest. Like everything hurt here, and it was just really bad. And I was like, this feels like it is after asthma attack. And then I was having, of course, like the head cold symptoms and stuff like that. So I was just like, I don't think this is just like a regular cold or something. And so I took the COVID test immediately, kaboom, positive. And I was like, so talked to the doctor about what to do about my daughter, but she was fine. It had passed her by then. So at that point, she was at day 5, and then part of the CDC stuff is like day 5, you test negative, you're fine. She was. But we did deduct it. I got it from her. But for me, I mentioned I had to quarantine for 10 days. By the time I got to my day 5, my symptoms were worse than they were at the beginning. And so that's important. The CDC information says at day 5, and a lot of people are saying, oh, you don't have to quarantine for day 5. If you actually read the instructions, at day 5, you're supposed to take a test and see if you test negative, or there's an addendum, if your symptoms are actually getting better. So if you are worse at day 5, you're supposed to continue to quarantine. Or in my case, on day 6, because my symptoms were so bad, and at that point it felt like my tongue was swelling, and my tongue just really hurt. I was getting winded just kind of walking short little burst in my house. And I felt like I was wheezing some, which concerned me because, again, I have asthma. And so I didn't want to get caught up in the fact, because even overnight, because asthma gets worse overnight, I felt like my breathing was getting worse. I was having just like, I couldn't sleep. I had to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning with like the wheezing, feeling stuff in the back of my throat. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna like choke or something. Like, this bad, I'm gonna have an asthma attack. So I did have to go to the doctor, and was immediately given a steroid shot and put on steroids and antibiotics and stuff because of the issues I was having with my tongue. I had actually lost like a bunch of weight because I didn't really have any appetite. And then when I would try to eat, to force myself to eat, it was just so painful. So all of that, and that is actually what helped me get to the healing point to getting over COVID. But I was still like, as soon as they looked at me, they looked at my throat and they was like, yeah, you definitely have COVID, just based off what they saw with my tongue and things like that. Kind of gross. But I did have to quarantine for 10 days. Yeah. During that time of quarantine, because I mean, I couldn't do anything. I was so tired. I was so sick. I watched a lot of HGTV. But I also journaled. I got my journal. And because, you know, I was alone with my thoughts, because it was just me in this room in my house, because my daughter was fine. So she basically had to kind of operate on her own. And I was quarantined. And it just got me to a point of a lot of reflection, right? And so these are a couple of COVID thoughts that I had, just some life thoughts that I had. One thing that came to me is, your job is just a temporary assignment. It will go on without you. Like I told you in the beginning, so this is going to go back to what I said earlier about how, because of the stress that I was under from my job, I had stopped a lot of the medicinal stuff that I was taking, which I think actually played a factor in me getting COVID. My immune system had kind of gotten down, and the stress as well had caused my immune system to get low, and that allowed that virus to just come on in. Hey girl, hey. But I want to say it was a temporary assignment, because I put in a notice like on one day, on day 0, just saying, hey, I'm not feeling good. I'm just going to try to lay down. So I'm just going to take the afternoon off. And then that Friday, I was like, well, the next day, day 1, still sick or whatever, trying to figure out what this is. No one followed up. No one really cared. Work was going on. And that was, for me, because I often, like, one of my things, I was trying to like crawl back to the computer because I kept thinking about deadlines and stuff. No one cared. Them deadlines were still there. I told those people at one point that I had COVID, and it wasn't like, oh, you need to log off the computer. Someone finally said something at one point, because even like going into day 10, my voice was so deep. Somebody told me I had a sultry voice. My daughter even joked with me the other day and was like, okay, sir, because I scared her, trying to give her a towel. But, you know, it was clear that I was sick when I talked. And no one was like, hey, you need to log off, because it was just kind of like, they didn't care. And I think we need to think about that. And it's not just for COVID, but just life in general. So many times we need the money, because I'm not rich now, so I have to work. But as I get older and I have more stuff happening with me in my life, health, stuff with family and parents and stuff like that, I am really just thinking about like how loyal we stay to these jobs, that if we were to die, they would hire our replacement the next day. And I'm not even saying it to be dramatic, because I had someone that I considered a mentor that literally died on my job last year. Died. And they sent out an email, and she was at a work retreat, was literally talking to her staff. And I knew she had some health issues. Was talking to her staff and just collapsed. And then they took her to the hospital and she died. And I think I saw her job announcement on the board a little while after that. They sent out an email. So for me, and this temporary assignment thing, I had Mamie Pack on my podcast, and this was something she said about jobs, but jobs versus purpose or whatever. But for me, it's like it really popped in my head that my job is a temporary assignment. It's gonna go on without me. And so once I had that insight, I was just like, I put my little notice in, and I was like, I'm gonna be off for the rest of the week. I had like 400 and some hours of sick leave. Take your leave. If you're like me, please take your leave. Take your leave. Take your leave and get better. That work is gonna be there. If they're gonna get mad at you, they were gonna probably already get mad at you about that job. That job is a temporary assignment. You need to work on healing your body, dealing with your family issues. The way this economy is looking, there's a lot of jobs out there. You can find you another one. But when people not gonna fire you. So take your time. That job is a temporary assignment. Another breakthrough that came to me is that as a mom, we really do make the world run, but a lot of times we will be fighting battles on our own. So it's imperative that we carve out things for ourselves, carve out a life for ourselves, look after ourselves and our mental health well-being. I went out with this guy one time, and he said he was recognizing that his daughters, who are also in high school like mine, had lives, and that he needed to get himself a life because they were going to be out of his house in like 3 years. And what was he going to have to show for what life he was going to have? He needed to cultivate friendships. He needed to go off and find things to do and trips and stuff, because they were spending time with friends. So he needed to do the same thing. And for me, it was kind of crazy because I took care of so many people, and then at this point when I was really sick, people were almost expecting me to just kind of take care of myself, or to still take care of them while I was sick. And I had to have some kind of get real conversations with people, even my youngest daughter, because in her eyes, you know, she was like, but you my mama. And she was also looking at the point, because, you know, kids recover faster from everything. You know, COVID didn't affect her like it affected me. She'd had COVID before, so she already had some of that immunity and stuff like that. I did not. And she's also younger, so, you know, they just pick up and bounce back. And I was down, and, you know, I really had to have a FaceTime conversation like, girl, you here, call your father. Then I had to call her father, because I'm divorced, and be like, no, I can't go pick somebody up. I'm in quarantine. I'm sick. Like, I'm over here like dizzy at some points. I couldn't breathe at some points. I tried to drive early on and go pick up some medicine on my own because I couldn't think of anyone who could pick up for me. And I had to turn around because I was like, Lord, I'm ready to pass out. So, but as moms, I think so many people view us in that mom thing, or view us in like, oh, well, you're always our go-to person. So what are you doing for you? I booked myself a trip to Puerto Rico during my quarantine. And I was like, I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to do something for myself, because I need to start thinking about what my life is going to look like moving forward. How can I live my life out loud? How can I carve out more time and more things for myself? Because I'm always pouring into other people. I need to really concentrate on pouring into myself. So that was something that came to me. That was insight that came to me. And the final thing that came to me, which I am actually so grateful that I have had these health issues over the past 6 years of my life, is that you must listen to your body. You must listen to your body. Before I had my stroke, the stroke was a sign that I need to listen to my body. I had been having little symptoms and things all along, and I was just pushing right on past them. So the stroke was my wake-up call. I was having a stroke, it was my wake-up call. This time with COVID, because I knew my body so well, I think that's how I was able to go ahead and know that I needed to test. One, it was how I knew that I needed to stop taking the NyQuil because it was actually making stuff worse. I started like I knew what my body felt like at certain levels, if that makes sense. And then when I followed up with the doctor about my issues with the NyQuil, and then I did some reading on my own, I found out that it's NyQuil and stuff like that is not recommended for people with asthma and COVID. Because it makes stuff work. It makes it where there's a better chance that the stuff will actually go down to our lungs. The fluid will drain down to our lungs. So I was like, thank goodness I caught that early on. I was like, this is like feeling like stuff is worse. Like, let me stop. So it's so important, especially as we get older, that we listen to your body. Listen to your body. You only get one body. Take care of it. Start to pay attention when you feel the pain in your back and your leg and your ankle, what things give you a headache, what food bothers you. All this stuff is like need to know information, things to talk to your doctor about, things to kind of log and file away, like, oh, this gives me discomfort, or this makes me feel good. Listen to your body. All right, so those are just some of my thoughts. Those are the strongest ones I had. I've had, like I said, I was journaling, so I was having like all sorts of breakthroughs and insights, but those were like my big 3 insights from COVID. Right now, I am dealing with the cough from COVID. If you have any handy dandy tips for dealing with COVID cough, drop them in the comments. Let me know if you've gotten COVID recently or in the past and what your experience was. Did you have some aha moments while you were in quarantine? Share them with me in the comments. Again, thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this video interesting or insightful. Subscribe to my channel for other things. And as always, find a little time to take a break. Bye.